إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, indeed those people who believe, وَهَاجَرُوا, and they also did hijrah. From these ayat, we reach the conclusion, the end of Surah Al-Anfal. That those people who believe and they also did hijrah, who does it refer to? The Muhajirun, those who migrated from Makkah to Medina. So they brought Iman and they migrated from Makkah to Medina. وَجَاهَدُوا, and they also did jihad. When they reached Medina, they left their homes to fight the enemy of the deen. They left Medina to go out to fight who? The enemy. So basically they did everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to do. When it was time to have Iman, they accepted Iman. When it was time to leave your home, go to another place, they went there. When it was time to, leave this home now and go somewhere else, they did that. So, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا, but how did they do jihad? بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ, by their wealth and also their selves. Meaning they didn't just spend their money, but they also went themselves. Many times we only sponsor other people. We only give a donation, but we don't give our own time. Like for example, in the month of Ramadan, if there is a public iftar, many times people will give the money. They will say, I wish to donate this much amount for the iftar. But the masjid, they don't just need the money, but they also need people to serve the food. Isn't it so? They also need people to clean up the mess afterwards. They also need people to bring the food, to prepare the food, to stay back, to come early. So, what kind of jihad is best? بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ, that you spend your money as well as yourself. You also go and work yourself. This is the best kind of jihad. And obviously, it has to be fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah. So the first group is of who? Of the Muhajirun. Then the Ansar are mentioned. وَالَّذِينَ آوَوْا, and those people who gave refuge. Who are these? The Ansar, the second group of believers. Awaw is from the root letters Hamza, Waw, Ya. Awa, Ya'wi, which is to give shelter. So Awa, they gave shelter, they accommodated who? Who did they give shelter to? Who did they accommodate in their own houses? The Muhajirun, the Prophet ﷺ. They took them in as their guests. They sheltered them. Those who immigrated to them, they welcomed them openly, wholeheartedly. Generally what happens? When a particular people are migrating to another country, the natives or the original people of that country, sometimes they're very hostile. They don't want other people in their country. But look at the Ansar. They welcomed the Muhajirun. Awaw, they gave refuge. They gave shelter. And they didn't just give shelter, but they also وَنَصَرُوا, and they also helped. Because remember, the Ansar were not obligated to go out of Medina to defend the Prophet ﷺ. When they went and fought in the Battle of Badr, this was ihsan on their part. وَنَصَرُوا, and they also helped. أُولَئِكَ, those. Who does those refer to? The Muhajirun and the Ansar. Who are they? They are بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْض. They are friends of one another. They are close protectors, guardians of one another. Awliya is a plural of wali. And who is a wali? Someone who is a friend to you, your helper, your protector, your guardian. And also someone with whom there is a relationship of wilaya, of qurb, of closeness. Like for example, the father is the wali of his daughter. So they are awliya of one another. How are they awliya of each other? That they help one another, they assist one another, they support one another, and they also have a share of inheritance. Initially, when the Muslims migrated to Medina, the Muhajirun and the Ansar, they would inherit from one another. Because remember that when the Muhajirun migrated to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ, he established the bond of brotherhood, of ukhuwah, between Muhajirin and the Ansar. One Muhajir was made the brother of who? Of one Ansar. So, in that relationship, what happened? The Ansar, he would give half of his wealth to him. They would share in everything. And this bond was so close, it was so strong, to the point that even if, for example, the Ansari died, then who would inherit from him? The Muhajir. Or if the Muhajir died, then who would inherit from him? The Ansar. So, they are friends of one another, close to one another. In Al-Bukhari, it is recorded that Ibn Abbas ﷺ said that they used to inherit from each other, having more right to inheritance than the deceased man's relatives. Until eventually the ayah was abrogated by the ayah in Surah An-Nisa, in which the shares are fixed. For who? For relatives only, and not friends. So initially, بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And as for those people who believed. Now this is a third group of believers. The first two groups are of who? The Muhajirun and the Ansar. Now the third group of believers, who are they? Those people who believe, but وَلَمْ يُهَاجِرُوا, but they have not done hijrah. Where are they? In Makkah, or in their tribe, wherever, elsewhere in Arabia. They haven't come and joined the rest of the Muslims. You understand? وَلَمْ يُهَاجِرُوا. They have not migrated to the Muslim land. So what about them? مَا لَكُمْ مِنْ وَلَايَتِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. You don't have any walayah with them. What does it mean by that? Meaning there is no inheritance between you and them. There is no inheritance between you and them. Similarly, they have no share in the war booty. Because they didn't participate in the battle. They don't have a share in the booty. So just because the Muslims win, doesn't mean that you have the same faith and you're living in another land, you come and say, I have a share in it as well. No, you can't do that. If you're not part of them, if you're not living amongst them, then you cannot demand the same rights. You cannot expect the same benefits. So those who have become believers but they have not done hijrah, then you don't have a close bond with them. Hatta until yuhajiru, until they migrate. Until they do hijrah, there is no wilayah for them. So we see over here that there are levels of friendship. There are levels of brotherhood. One level is that of brotherhood based on Islam, wherever the person may be. And the next level is that of brotherhood based on the sacrifices that one has made in the way of Allah. The immigrants, the Muhajirun, they had made sacrifices. The Ansar, they had also made sacrifices. And because of that reason, they were more worthy of certain rights. They deserved more from one another. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he had so much love for them as well. So we see that those who support the deen with their lives and their properties, they have a higher rank in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As opposed to those people who are only believers and they don't sacrifice for the sake of the deen. They don't have a higher rank in the sight of Allah, nor do they have a stronger bond of friendship with the rest of the believers. وَإِنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ. But if they seek help from you, فِي الدِّينِ, in their religion. Who seeks help from you? Those believers who have not migrated, who have not done hijrah to Medina. They're living elsewhere. They seek help from you in the matter of religion. What does it mean by in the matter of religion? Like, for example, to learn the deen. They ask you, can you please send someone? We want to learn the deen. And this happened many times. People would come to Medina. They would request the Prophet ﷺ that we have become Muslim. We're going back to our homeland. Can you please send some of your Sahaba with us? And sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would. And you know about the incident in which the Prophet ﷺ sent many of the Sahaba, about 70 huffaz, and they betrayed the Prophet ﷺ and they killed them. So وَإِنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ. If they ask you for help in the matter of religion, to learn about the deen, for the security of their religion, فَعَلَيْكُمُ النَّصْرُ. Then on you is the duty, the obligation of helping them. You must help them. You must aid them. When they ask you for something with regards to religion, then you must cooperate with them. You must help them. You must assist them. It is an obligation on them. Illa except in one situation. If they ask you for help, even if it's for the security of their religion, in that situation you cannot help them. When? That illa ala qawmin, except against a people, meaning these Muslims are asking your help against a people. Which people? بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ مِيثَاقٌ. Between you and between them is an oath, is a pact. What pact? Of peace. There is a treaty of peace between you and those disbelievers. So in that case, even if there is a Muslim amongst them, and he asks you, please come and help me. He asks you, please come and aid me against these people. Even then you cannot go and help him. Why? Because you have a treaty of peace with those non-Muslims. So you cannot go fight them. Like for example, when the Prophet ﷺ had the treaty with the mushrikeen of Mecca, of Hudaybiyah, what was one of the clauses? That if anybody leaves from Mecca and goes to Medina, you cannot keep them, you have to return them. And the Prophet ﷺ abided by that. To the point that one of the Sahaba, he came at that moment, and he had just managed to escape, shackled up, he was locked up in chains, and he was desperate for help. But the Prophet ﷺ had to send him back. Why? For the greater good of Muslims. So if they ask your help with regards to the security of religion, but against a people with whom you have a treaty of peace, then you cannot go fight against those people. You cannot go fight against those non-Muslims. Wallahu bima ta'maluna baseer. If you try to cheat in any way, then know that Allah is watching your every move. So don't deceive, because Allah does not like those people who deceive. So what do we learn in this ayah? That there are three groups of believers. One is of those who migrate. The other is of those who help. These two are serving the deen. These two are sacrificing for the deen. Then there is another group who believe, but for some reason or the other, they don't sacrifice for the deen. They don't work for the cause of Allah. They stay in their own homes. They don't compromise in their dunya, but they also have iman. You understand? They also have iman, but they don't compromise on their faith at all. So such believers, you have the relationship of brotherhood with them in the sense that they are Muslim. You don't say that just because they haven't done hijrah, they're not Muslim. No, they are Muslim. And if they ask you for help, you have to help them. Especially if they're living in a land where they're being oppressed. So you have to help them. But if they are in a land where the disbelievers of that area, you have a peace treaty with them, then you cannot go and help those Muslims even. Why? Because that would mean violating the peace treaty. And that is something that is not acceptable of a believer. That is not acceptable of a believer. Because earlier we learned that if you have a treaty and you expect treachery from them, then what should you do? If you wish to dissolve it openly. So similarly over here, if you have to dissolve it openly. Don't go and deceive them and attack secretly. It does not behoove a Muslim. So what do we learn? That if there are Muslims living in a non-Muslim land, and you have a treaty of peace with them, then you cannot just go and attack the non-Muslims for no justified reason. Or just because the Muslims over there are telling you, come and fight these people. Especially if you have a pact of peace, a treaty of peace. Do you understand? And if you go and attack them, if you go and kill those non-Muslims, that is what? Jihad in the way of Allah? No, it's killing innocents. It's killing innocent people. That would be murder. That would be incorrect on the part of Muslims. And sometimes what happens? The Muslims, they get very emotional. And they don't look at all the guidelines that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given with regards to battle. They look at only a few things. And they base everything on them. And they go and generalize. And they go and attack. And they go and wage war. And at the end, themselves suffer. So what do we learn from here? That you cannot attack non-Muslims unless and until you're at war with them. And it's open, it's known, and there is a need. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. On the other hand, those people who disbelieve, what about them? بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. They are friends of one another. Meaning, they help one another, they assist one another, they inherit from one another. إِلَّا, if not. Illa over here does not mean except. It's a combination of in and la. If not taf'aluhu, you all do the same. If you don't do it as well, what? That if you also don't have the relationship of brotherhood, of close friendship between yourselves, then what's going to happen? تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. There will be a fitna in the earth and a great discord, a great decay, a great corruption in the earth. If you don't have wilaya with the rest of the Muslims. What is meant by this ayah? That just as the believers have a strong bond based on Islam, similarly the disbelievers have a strong bond based on what? On kufr. Muslims are united based on their faith, and disbelievers are united based on their disbelief. People may say we don't care about religion, but they do. Even if their religion is no religion, they do care about their faith. Faith is what you believe in. Even if you say, I don't believe in anything, that's what you believe in. So, people care about their religion. So just as Muslims are united by Islam, similarly, disbelievers are united by their kufr. They have alliances as well, and they support one another as well. So if they are supporting one another, they are cooperating with one another, why should you Muslims not cooperate with one another? You must cooperate one another. You must help one another. And if you don't do that, then what's going to happen? There is going to be a fitna in the land. And what does fitna mean? Religious persecution. A great trial, discord for the Muslims. Muslims will suffer a lot. There will be religious persecution on the earth. And there will also be fasadun kabir, that innocents will be killed. Innocents will suffer. If today you let them harm some Muslims, tomorrow they will come and harm others. You cannot let someone who is doing wrong thrive in the society. You have to stop him. And for that you need to be together. You need to be united. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, but those people who have believed, وَهَاجَرُوا, and they have migrated, وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and they have fought in the cause of Allah. This is referring to all of the believers now, who do all of these things. That they believe, they do hijrah, and they do jihad in the way of Allah. وَالَّذِينَ آوَوا وَنَصَرُوا, and those people who gave refuge and they also assisted. أُولَٰئِكَ, those, هُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ حَقًّا, they are the believers in truth. لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ, for them is forgiveness, وَرِزْقٌ كَرِيمٌ, and a reward that is noble, a reward that is generous. So who has true iman? Who has true iman? We learned earlier in the surah about those people who have true iman. They have certain characteristics. And over here also certain characteristics have been mentioned at the end of the surah. At the beginning of the surah they were mentioned, and at the conclusion of the surah again they are mentioned. So what are the characteristics that are mentioned over here? What is it that makes a believer a true believer? When he sacrifices for the sake of Allah. When he sacrifices for the sake of Allah. When he sacrifices in order to serve the deen. Whether it means leaving your house, giving up some of your wealth or all of your wealth, or your life, or supporting those people who are serving the deen. Do you understand? So in order to be a true believer, you either have to be a muhajir or an ansari. Be a muhajir or an ansari. Muhajir symbolizes someone who is leaving everything, his home, his comfort, even his family. Why? To serve the deen. And who does the Ansar refer to? What does that symbolize? The one who is supporting him. The one who is helping him. Because a person cannot serve the deen alone. No one can serve the deen alone. No one can work for the cause of Allah alone by himself. He can, but his work, his effect will be limited. When other people are supporting him, then there will be much more effect of that work. Isn't it so? So, the Prophet ﷺ in Makkah, he was doing da'wah. And it was effective. But when he moved to Medina, when he found more helpers, didn't the work grow much more? Islam became more strong. So, to help the deen, to serve the deen, we have to come together. We have to come together. Either take the role of the one who is sacrificing his home, his time, his life, his career to serve the deen, or be of those who are cooperating and helping those people who are doing that. Do you understand? So how will you do it realistically, practically? How will you do it? For example, one level would be that you spend your time, spend your money to learn the deen, to educate yourself in the deen. And learning the deen does not just mean going through the Quran once. No. Learning the deen means studying the Quran, being an expert, being a sahibul Quran, a sahib of the Quran, that a person has memorized, he has understood, he studied, and not just one aspect, but in several aspects, and then he's not just learned, but he's also passing it on. And remember, this study, it takes a long time. Not just a year, 2 years. It takes many, many years, one thing after the other. Then a person reaches a level where he can convey. And so, one level is that you take that route. The other is that you realize, okay, I don't think I'm good at teaching. I don't think I have that skill of, being very academic and learning. Everybody's different. Some people are very good at academics, other people are not. They are good at organizing and managing. They're good at, let's say, setting up a place. So, find what you're good at doing and use that ability to serve the deen. If Allah has given you the ability to write well, if Allah has given you a memory that is sharp, use that to learn the deen and teach the deen. And if you have other abilities, then use those to serve the deen. So, true believers are who? Those people who sacrifice for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِن بَعْدُ. And as for those people who believed afterwards. After when? After the initial hijrah. The initial hijrah was when? When the Prophet ﷺ did hijrah. Up until then, around that time, whoever migrated, that was hijrah. But anyone who did hijrah afterwards, several years after, and then وَجَاهَدُوا مَعَكُمْ, and they also did jihad with you. They also fought with you. فَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنْكُمْ, then they are among you. They are of you. So this is the fourth group of believers that is being mentioned over here. So far we have learned about 3. Correct? Now we're learning about the fourth group. First group is of Muhajirun. The other is of Ansar. The third is of those who have believed but they haven't done hijrah. Fourth is of those who did hijrah later on. But remember, this is only until the time of Fath. Because the Prophet ﷺ clearly stated that there is no hijrah after the conquest. After the conquest, no one can say, okay, I'm going to Medina, I'm doing hijrah. No. Okay, after Fath, there is no hijrah. There is no hijrah of that standard, of that level. So, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِن بَعْدُ وَهَاجَرُوا, those people who believed afterwards and they also did hijrah, وَجَاهَدُوا مَعَكُمْ, and they also did jihad amongst you, فَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنْكُمْ, then there are of you. Don't say that just because you joined us late, you're not one of us. Many times what happens? People become Muslim and they're always considered as converts. Really. This is how people treat them. Oh, she's a convert. That's how they're always introduced. Okay, it's a good thing. But sometimes people get offended. There are converts who get offended that they say that we never feel as though we are a part of the Muslim community. We're always treated as the other. There's always this feeling of strangeness between us and them. What does Allah say? فَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنْكُمْ, they are one of you. Consider them to be a part of you. Don't consider them as strangers. They are part of you. وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ, and the possessors of close relations, meaning close relatives. Arham is the plural of rahm, which is used for womb. Ulul arham are who? Those who have a relationship of qurb with you. So in other words, those people who have blood relations, relatives by blood. بَعْضُهُمْ, some of them, are أَوْلَى بِبَعْضٍ, they are closer compared to others. They are nearer. They are closer. What does it mean by this? Up until now, there was inheritance between the Muhajirun and the Ansar, because of the ukhuwah that was established between them. However, later on, it was abrogated. Later on, it was abrogated. And there was no inheritance between who? The Muhajirun and the Ansar. But inheritance was limited to who? The ulil arham only. And that is what is mentioned over here. That وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلَى بِبَعْضٍ, that those having their relationships of qurb, they are closer to one another, in the sense that they have the right of inheritance only. فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ, in the book of Allah. What does it mean by the book of Allah? In the Lawh al-Mahfuz. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ, indeed Allah is with everything knowing. He knows about everything, including the wisdom regarding the rules of inheritance and everything that He has commanded in the surah. We listen to the recitation of these ayat and then we will do the conclusion of the surah. So what's the main theme of these ayat? That the believers, they are awliya of one another. They are together. They are friends of one another. They are very close to one another. And in order to make this clear, initially there was also inheritance between the believers, despite the fact that they were not relatives, even if they were not of the same tribe. To make this clear to them that because of your faith, you are together. Because of your belief, you are one. And in this is a message for us as well, that all the believers, they are one, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their color, irrespective of where they are from, of when they became Muslim, of what type of sacrifice they are making for the deen. All are awliya of one another. To the point that even if there is a believer who is living away from you and he asks for help, it is your responsibility to help him. Unless obviously it's in a situation where you cannot because of a treaty. But believers, they are one group. They are one nation. They are one people. What binds us together is our iman, not the color of our skin, not the language that we speak. These are all worldly things. What really connects us together is our iman, our faith. And this is something that we must remember, because this is one of the keys to success. A people cannot be successful until they're united. And unity cannot come when people cannot look beyond the color of the skin of the other person. When they cannot look beyond the language that he speaks. You have to look beyond the materialistic things. And you have to see what is it that's in the heart of this person which draws me closer to him. It's his iman, which I have as well. And if the Muslims are not united, then there are severe consequences that will not just be suffered by some people, but will be suffered by many people, by innocence. And the more a person sacrifices for the deen, the higher his iman is. So to summarize the surah, actually let's go back to the beginning of where we started the Quran from, in Surah Al-Fatiha. What did we learn about? We made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, guide us to the right path. In Surah Al-Baqarah, we were told about what our mission is as a Muslim ummah. That you are the Muslim ummah and your job is to convey the message to the rest of the people. In Surah Al-Imran, the ways of maintaining unity were mentioned. Different ways of maintaining unity were mentioned. And ways to persevere upon the deen. And all of these lessons were extracted from which incident? The Battle of Uhud. In Surah An-Nisa, what was mentioned? There was an emphasis that was placed on justice and mercy, adl and ar-rahmah, that give the weak their rights. And only if you're successful in your family, in your social affair, then can you be successful at a greater level. So we have to start from the basics. We have to fix what is in our homes, and then we can worry about what is in our world. Then in Surah Al-Ma'idah, we learned about the importance of fulfilling contracts and commitments, promises that we have made with Allah, promises that we have made with other people. In Surah Al-An'am, the lesson of Tawheed was revised. That your Lord is one Lord, and you're here to worship Him only. And in Surah Al-A'raf, different nations were mentioned. How they dealt with their messengers, and how they were destroyed. How they were punished for their behavior towards their messenger. And it shows to us that there has constantly been strife between truth and falsehood from the very beginning, from the time of Nuh alayhi salam. And this strife between truth and falsehood will continue until the Day of Judgment. And in Surah Al-Anfal, the keys to success are mentioned. What are the steps to attaining success? How can the Muslim nation be successful? How can the Muslims be successful? What is it that leads believers to their success? What is it that we must do in order to be successful in this dunya and the akhirah? And of the first things that we learn from this surah is that we have to fix our iman. We have to improve our iman. Because only when iman is correct, That's the first step. When that is correct, then we can go to the next levels, which can lead us to success. But it begins from improving your iman. And then what's the next step? What's the next step? وَأَصْلِحُوا ذَاتَ بَيْنِكُمْ. That reform the relationships that are amongst you all. Reform your relationships that are between you all. There is emphasis on mutual unity, avoiding discord, avoiding disputes, strengthening iman. Because if a person is strong in his iman, but in practical life he's not implementing anything, then what use is that iman? What benefit is that iman? When there is iman in the heart, it should be applied in daily life. And how is it seen that a person is applying it in his daily life? How? How a person deals with those who are close to him, with those who are around him. Because if a person has great ideas, great missions, great plans to conquer the world and to do great things, but if he cannot get along with his family well, then what can he achieve? Nothing. We learned in Surah Al-A'raf that some people on the A'raf, why will they be there? Because some people will have gone for jihad in disobedience to their parents. So, they will neither be allowed to enter Jannah, nor will they be sent to hellfire. So what does it show to us? That we need to correct our iman. At the same time, we need to fix our relationships, better our relationships, strengthen our relationships. We need to focus on unity, avoiding discord, avoiding disputes, avoiding khiyana, avoiding treachery. We have been taught in this surah that لا تخونوا, do not do khiyana towards Allah or the Rasul or to one another. Similarly, of the steps of success that have been given in the surah are that we should be physically and mentally prepared. Prepare some quwwah, having sabr, having thabat, having patience, steadfastness. And one of the most important things is freeing yourself from the love of this world. The believers asked about Anfal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't even give the answer. 40 verses were revealed, and then finally the answer was given. And then over and over again it is emphasized, you're not going to battle to make more money. So you have to take the love of this world out of your heart if you want to be successful. If you want to be truly successful, you have to take this love of this world out of your heart. Because if you have that in your heart, then you cannot have ikhlas. Then you cannot have thabat. Then you want to be in comfort. Then you want to enjoy this world. And when you want to do that, then how can you do greater things? How can you sacrifice? If you just imagine a soldier, what comfort is a soldier enjoying? Nice clothes? A nice bed? A nice warm meal? Nothing like that. A good night's sleep? Nothing like that. Think of yourself as a soldier sometimes. Literally, think of yourself as that. When you have to sit for long, when you have to study for long, when you have to stay hungry for long. Think of yourself as a soldier, someone in the way of Allah, someone who has to go through hardship. And you can only do that when you free yourself from the love of this world. And then the example of the Muhajirun and the Ansar is given. That if they can do it, you can do it. They are your guides, they are your role models. Follow their way. And you follow their way, and you will be successful. So in this surah, what is mentioned is how the believers can be successful. What is the way? What is the path to success for believers? What is it that we have to develop in ourselves? What is it that we have to leave? What is it that we have to start doing so that we can become successful? Every Muslim wonders today, how can Muslims be successful? The answer is in the Quran. And we need to go back to the Quran. We listen to the recitation of these ayat. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.